Hi, Elizabeth. I'm super excited to have you join me for this episode of Coffee with Closers.
Excited to be here.
Most certainly. Well, we're both kind of part of the YEC community. There's obviously a lot of entrepreneurs in that ecosystem. And that's kind of how I discovered you and then come to find out you're an author. You've been an established entrepreneur for quite some time, contributed your content across so many reputable publications like the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, and so many other publications as well. So obviously you've had an entrepreneurial journey, and then now you're actually a time management coach for very high performing entrepreneurs and business leaders. So can you share with our audience a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and how you got to where you are today?
I'd be delighted to. So, I did not expect to be an entrepreneur at all. I thought I loved the corporate world and would be there a long time. But what happened was that I was in the magazine journalism industry and I ended up in a position that was just not a good fit. And I've always been a very high performer. I was valedictorian of my class and did very well in all of my different career endeavors, but ended up in a situation where my boss and I were like oil and water, and no matter what I did, I was wrong.
Mhm.
And I am actually someone of faith, and I was thinking about it, praying about it, and really trying to see what was the right next step for me.
Mhm.
And I felt that I was supposed to apply for new jobs and then really felt like I had divine guidance in terms
Mhm.
of even if I didn't get a new job to resign on my 1 year anniversary. So I applied for new jobs within 2 weeks, had 7 interviews set up, thought, okay, for sure, I'm definitely getting a new job. I resigned on my 1 year anniversary and didn't get any of the jobs I interviewed for. And I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, this is not all what I was expecting. And what ended up happening though is that I got tricked into starting a business.
Mhm.
And I had a bunch of people in my network who reached out to me about doing writing, editing, or photo styling for
Mhm.
different magazines, marketing materials, marketing firms, marketing organizations within corporations. And so I quickly built up that business, really enjoyed what I did. It was successful, honestly, kind of easily, but I had no work life balance. And so I was working at night, working on the weekends, feeling guilty whenever I wasn't working. And after a few years of this, I was like, enough is enough. I don't care if I seem successful by a lot of standards. If I can never stop working without feeling guilty, I don't feel successful. And
Mhm.
so I really figured out how to not work at night, not work on the weekends, set better expectations, plan and delegate. And then my entrepreneur friends were like, Elizabeth, this is amazing. We run successful businesses, but we're stressed out all the time. You should help other people. And so that's what led to me dabbling at first with being a coach. I was concerned because there were so many coaches out there and so many people with so many more years of experience than I had. But I started out and I just radically focused on just time management coaching. So I
Mhm.
wasn't a life coach, not a business coach, not a career coach, executive coach, just time management. And back
Mhm.
in that was pretty cutting edge. There really weren't a lot of time management coaches. There
Mhm.
was definitely time management training. That was pretty common, but not coaching. And so I really developed this niche where I could be the best in the world at being a time management coach and helping people to organize their time to be more peaceful and productive.
So you actually kind of, like you said, accidentally became an entrepreneur, became very successful at it, but at the expense of losing your sleep and your your rest and your sound mind, and then decided that this isn't the life you want. You wanted to find a way to balance, and then you started implementing some of those into your own business, and then you
Yep,
decided, well, this is actually a service that I can offer to other entrepreneurs who has the same problem, right? Like who have the same
exactly.
sort of a lifestyle, and I can
Mhm.
I can relate to what you just explained about entrepreneurs in general, right? Entrepreneurs are very driven and they have very aspirational goals, and sometimes they think the only way to achieve those goals is by putting in that extra work, which usually is in the form of weekends and nights of working weekends and nights and not having a time like a balanced life. So that I think is usually the reason. And I think there comes a point some people overcome that obstacle and kind of have that time freedom, because that's usually why people get into business, right? They want time freedom, but they ended up losing that one thing they actually wanted.
Yes,
so
exactly.
so that's an interesting journey. So how did you kind of like crystallize this time management principles? And obviously you wrote a book, right? The
Yep.
Three Secrets of Effective Time Investment. So can you kind of explain to us how you came to some principles and best practices around this, and maybe some of those things that you would put into your book as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, a few different things. One is I definitely practice what I preach.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything that I'm encouraging other people to do, I do myself. That may sound obvious, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that say they're experts in things and do not do the things that they encourage you to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's like one of the key things that helps what I do be very powerful, because it's from a very authentic place where I'm having to make the same trade-offs and choices that I'm encouraging my clients to do.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, my coaching clients are my laboratory. So I have worked with people on every continent except Antarctica, clients all over the world, huge range of experience, everything from entrepreneurs to people starting out in their career to people that are executives at publicly traded companies and everything in between. And so through that and through the journey of I work with individuals for at least 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
I really get a sense of what works and doesn't work. And I think that's one of the key differences between coaching and training. So a lot of time management training is about, this is a system, it's the perfect system, fit yourself into this, have fun with that. And if it doesn't work for you, you're wrong. Something's wrong
Mm-hmm.
with you. Versus coaching is saying, who are you? What's your situation? What will work for you? How can we custom develop this so it's sustainable? And you don't need to fit yourself in the system. We're going to make the system work for your situation. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really how I really feel like I developed just a very deep understanding of what works and doesn't work for people.
Mm-hmm.
And that really informs my writing. So I published 3 books. My first book that you mentioned was with McGraw-Hill, The 3 Secrets to Effective Time Investment. And that's really a comprehensive look at lasting behavioral change. And now it's actually pretty common, some of the things that I talked about then. But back when I published that in 2012, it was quite cutting edge to talk about the emotional and mental side of time management change. And so that first third of that book is talking about the emotions that can stand in the way of you being effective with your time, such as shame or guilt, overwhelm, any of those. And then the mental patterns that are important for that change, such as being positive, having realistic optimism, and some of the other things that are just going to help you to think in your best way to be successful. And why that's important is that a lot of time management change is not just left brain skills building, although that is essential, but also right brain emotions in terms of actually following through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of what I cover there. And then in the 3 Secrets book, I talk about clarifying action-based priorities, which is about translating abstract priorities such as your health into concrete actions, such as go to the gym 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., and do 30 minutes of cardio and 15 minutes of weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's clarify action-based priorities. The second part is about setting realistic expectations, because one of the big challenges people have with time management is unrealistic expectations about what actually fits. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's especially true for entrepreneurs. They think
Mm-hmm.
they can do everything all at once. And finally, the third section is on strengthening simple routines.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, if you want to be more effective, be more efficient, you need to turn as much as possible into a routine to reduce your decision making and increase your speed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what that was about. And then I also wrote 2 other books. And again, those are informed by working with clients all over the world on overcoming those challenges.
Mm-hmm. A lot of good things there to pull up from, right? So obviously, you said you've kind of used your coaching clients as a research tool to kind of see what works and what doesn't work and what kind of drives certain people. And at least from what you're explaining, it seems as though time management is also more of a habit forming sort of a thing, right? Kind of similar to what James Clear teaches in his own books, right? So I think, is that kind of what you're seeing? What are some common things you've saw, right? Obviously, you said, you can watch a bunch of YouTube videos on time management techniques, and which is what most people do, and that's what you meant about the time management training. But the reason why people don't have the ability to put it to practice, because they don't have the behavior, right? They don't have the behavior in actually following through on some of those best practices or tactics.
Right.
So yeah, can you elaborate on that? Some of the
Mhm,
common themes that you saw about, maybe an entrepreneur or a business leader, some
mhm.
form of high performing person,
Yeah, for
why
sure.
they weren't able to follow through.
Mhm. Yeah, so you're right that it really is about habits. And what that comes down to is really your neuroconnections. And
Mm-hmm.
so, because our brains, by definition, just need to learn how to be efficient so we can function, they have certain patterns that they're going to follow when they see a trigger or have a cue. And so, whether you think you do or not, you already have habits around so many different things. And with time management, you're trying to actually be intentional in what those habits look like.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of barriers to success that I see between knowing what to do with certain habits and actually doing them, there's a variety of things I see. One comes down to the realistic expectations, and I think a huge issue that people can confront is maybe they binge watch time management YouTube videos or they read a great book and they're like, "Wow, that sounds amazing! I'm going to do a 20-step morning routine." Like, go from rolling out of bed and starting work to like doing 20 different things before I start work. They maybe do that for 1 or 2 days and then can't keep up with it, stop doing it, and just go back from to rolling out of bed and starting work.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the keys I've really seen is that to have sustainable change, you need to build over time. And so
Mm-hmm.
maybe that looks like, okay, I get up and I drink a glass of water with lemon before I start work. And that's like the one thing I'm doing for a while, like the whole kind of like tiny habits idea. Or maybe I get up and then I have a glass of water and then I actually eat breakfast too, or I get dressed and like
Mm-hmm.
just adding in a few things at a time, letting yourself stabilize and then doing the like habit stacking on top of it is actually
Mm-hmm.
a lot more effective than trying to change everything all at once. And you may be a person that never should have a 20-step morning routine. Like you may be completely fine having a 2 or 3 step one that you do consistently. So
Mm-hmm.
also not like having the expectations so high about what you can do. So I see that as like one really big issue, like people trying to do too much change all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that really thwarts people in the process of change is thinking that their time is infinite. And this is why I wrote the book, my second book, How to Invest Your Time Like Money, that was published with Harvard Business Review. And the reason for that is it's just getting that sense of you have 24 hours in a day, you have 7 days in a week. Is there ways you can be more efficient and effective by being focused, not procrastinating, delegating? Absolutely. But at the same time, is there a certain limit of what is actually possible in your day? Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, coming to terms, like, settling into that idea of like, there are limits, I can't do everything, and being willing to radically make those choices is important. So, for example, even earlier before this interview, we were talking about, some of the different things I do for my business. And I'm very clear on what actions lead to return on investment with my business. I'm very clear about what publications I write for. I'm also very clear what I don't do. And I say
Mm-hmm.
no to things constantly because I know if I do that, I can get the most essential things done that will lead to success for myself and others and still very much have a life. And so if you're not willing to say no to things or even recognizing that you have to say no to things, you're setting yourself up for failure. No matter how fast you are or efficient you are at what you're doing, you're not going to be getting the most essential things done and you're going to constantly feel behind and stressed out and overwhelmed. So those are kind of some of the big things that I see as issues. And oftentimes you're so in it that it's hard for you to even see what's going on. And by having a coach or some kind of outside perspective, they can say, like, hey, what you're doing here is more than what anyone else is doing, or that doesn't actually fit. And it can help you make those decisions about what's actually best for you.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, like you said, right, like a habit stacking, a kind of building up on a time management best practices or principles or whatever you would call it, and then growing over time and having like an entire system that you operate out of. Whether that means some sort of a daily routine, whether that means, I think one of the concepts that you teach in your book is the concept of time blocking, and then setting apart specific time period for a specific type of task, or doing certain type of a thing, right? And I think people understand some of those things, but oftentimes they don't they don't obviously follow through on, even then, like they don't follow through on. So do you think the reason a lot of times people are failing to implement is because of the fact that they're just, is it just like, obviously you mentioned that you became a coach more than just a trainer. Is there some common misconceptions about what they need to do? Like where, like I personally have a time management issue. I know about time blocking. I block the time, but I still allow the urgent to take the space of important. And knowingly, I give into that and say all the time, right? And then I would just make an excuse why I ended up doing it. But there are certain things that I was able to put into practice. Like I started exercising very regularly during COVID, and I got into that habit, and I almost never, I try not to miss. And primarily because I'm able to use a tool called, I don't know if you know, it's a electronic gym. It's called Tonal. So it's got a gamification built into it that actually shows my workout routine and the days that I miss. And then it gives me, thumbs up when I've been keeping up with my routine and whatever else, right? So that gamification has given me that encouragement that I needed to like really exercise. But I don't get that same encouragement for checking my email or, whatever else, right? Like you don't have that gamification. So what I'm saying is like, what is the reason why like I allow certain things like the urgent takes the space of important, and just I knowingly that I still make that? Like
Right.
what is the psychological reason behind it?
Right. So two things. One is you can gamify anything. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's habit tracking apps like Streaks or anything like that where if you wanted to put in check email every day, you could.
Mm-hmm.
So if you found like as a coach, I'm always looking for like how does this person work and what's most
Mm-hmm.
effective for them. So if you found that app that gamifies working out to be super effective, I would apply that in whatever other area you're wanting to be consistent. So that's my first tip there. Like
Mm-hmm.
use what works in one area for something else. But in terms of like allowing the urgent to overtake the important, a few things. One is one huge thing to be able to have effective time investment is to reduce the urgent as much as possible. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever my clients have a situation like that, we talk it through. We're like, well, why was that a fire? What came up? Could you have prevented it? Like, could you have asked for information earlier? Or could you have like done XYZ? And so we want to try to like reduce urgent things and reduce
Mm-hmm.
fires as much as possible so that that's less of an excuse to deviate from our plan. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's important to really like redefine urgent. So to really ask yourself, like, if I didn't do this right now, would something really bad happen? Sometimes the answer is yes. Like sometimes no matter what, you just have to drop everything, like go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times it would be okay. Like it would be okay for you to wait until the hour was done of like the work you had planned to do and you'd be okay. So that would be, I would say, step two to like really stop and like ask yourself that question.
Mm-hmm.
Another possible strategy that can help is just not knowing about the urgent thing. So shut down your email, like flip over your phone and put it on silent. Shut down the IM. Like if you have your project time designated, you shouldn't know about these things. Nothing should be
Mm-hmm.
popping up and just like giving yourself permission to do that thing. And then finally, if you're noticing, even with that, like you're tempted to just like bounce all around, get some accountability in place. So maybe that looks like a coach, or maybe it's some other accountability, like to one of your team members that you say, like, by Friday, I will have this proposal written up for you, or I will have like this item completed, and then you feel a little silly if you have that
Mm-hmm.
meeting on Friday and like you haven't completed it or you're supposed to send it. So that's another thing where you can make what you want to do for yourself that's important something that someone else knows about, and then that creates a bit of accountability there. Because the thing is, like we tend to want to go towards what feels urgent or easy, um, and gravitate towards that. And that's not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
like wrong or bad. We feel that way. But with effective time investment, we're going away from like just our gut response to our highest and greatest good of what we actually want to do. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It does. And I think like the Brian Tracy's book, like they eat that frog, right? Like he talked
Yeah.
about doing the hard things first to
Mhm.
get it out of the way so you you could actually feel relieved. And I think I do the opposite, knowing that I think that's the thing I need to do. I still do the easy thing, which
Mhm.
put aside the important thing, and then usually kind of falls on the wayside.
Mhm.
So you mentioned, I think the emphasis, like for example, like if you think about procrastination, right? That's a problem most people have, and it's not because they don't want to do what need to get done, but it's just like they're constantly thinking how monumental that task is, and then that holds them from actually taking that step toward getting onto that work, right? And I think it's been my biggest struggle too. Like even in school, I was very procrastinator, but I would still get my work done, but I will do it in such a hurry and feel like rushed and everything else, knowing that I know I should have done this a lot sooner, but I just waited until last minute. And I think
Mhm.
that those kind of behavior kind of follows through entire life. Like it's not
Mhm.
something that just goes away after college years, right? It follows through. So, I mean, what are some best practices that you've seen working really well for people to overcome procrastination?
Yeah, yeah. So a few things that I found to be really helpful. One is to try to break those
Mm-hmm.
larger tasks into as small of little parts as possible, like
Mm-hmm.
little subtasks. So you can do that in a task management system where like you break it down into subtasks. You might even want to write it down on paper. Like I'm someone that thinks more abstractly and creatively on paper. So just like
Mm-hmm.
write things down. Like maybe it's open the document, do a
Mm-hmm.
save as, read this email from Joe,
Mm-hmm.
look at the first page, like whatever it is, like get it broken down into really small tasks because then that immediately like lowers that sense of like fear and overwhelm, like oh, this is going to take 5 hours, or I don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
do this, or I don't want to get started until I have the perfect time, and then like the perfect time never comes. And so breaking it down, I would say, is the first point. The second thing I would recommend is if you're really procrastinating, start with just a very small incremental amount of time. So it
Mm-hmm.
could be even just 15 minutes where you say, okay, before my next meeting, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on getting this first action step done on this list. And just like begin to build momentum. Or
Mm-hmm.
you might do Pomodoros where you do like 25 minutes of focus time, 5-minute break, and you just really create like a low barrier to entry where even a little bit of time counts as progress. And then you just set the next time you're going to get started. So maybe today you do 15 minutes, do something, and then you're like, okay, tomorrow, first thing, I'm going to do 15 minutes more. And once you get momentum building, I find that actually you can go much longer. So you might say, like, okay, I'm really into this. I understand I've got flow. Now maybe I'm going to do an hour at a time or even 2 hours. But you need to start like really simple to begin. So I find those to be really effective. And then another technique you can use if you're really procrastinating and you want accountability, there is a service called FocusMate. So it's FocusMate, and you can sign up for a particular day and time to have a focus buddy. And so there'll be someone else in the world that they pair you with who wants to get something done at the same day and time. You show up there on video, you meet up, and at the start, you just ask, like, or you just tell them what you're going to work on, and they tell you what they're going to work on, and then you just quietly work while you're both on video. And at the end, you got to tell them what you did, and they have to tell you. So,
Mm-hmm.
so if you're really procrastinating, that can be a way to have like real time accountability and someone there to support you.
Yeah. So when you pay, you're going to feel the pain, so you'll get your stuff done too.
Yes, yes.
You touched on the whole concept of a distraction, right? Like I think we're all, especially with the connected world, we have so many digital tools, social media notifications, email notification, text, and everything else in between that really does affect our attention. And a lot of times getting things done is a lack of attention problem too. Like, are there any practical ways other than just put your phone away? Like, are there things that you've seen to have worked for your clients
Mhm.
in terms of helping them eliminate distraction or at least avoid it?
Right. Well, I mean, one is, and this goes back to my friend Cal Newport has written a lot of books, including
Mm-hmm.
one called Digital Minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the real key things at first is to even ask yourself if you want to even have the distraction in your life. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I don't even have an Instagram account, and there's certain other social media platforms I've never engaged in. So, do you really need to even be subscribed to that thing or be a member on this or that thing? Sometimes, yes. Like I do have a LinkedIn profile. So it's not that I don't engage at all, but I would say, first of all, maybe just completely eliminate certain distractions that you find to be troublesome in
Hmm.
staying focused, that aren't adding a lot of value. Number two, there are blockers. So if you find, like, even when you tell yourself, like, oh, I shouldn't check my phone, I am anyway. For example, freedom.to, so freedom.to is one that I recommend to clients. It'll work on your computer, phone, iPad, all those different things. And you can set that certain sites or certain types of sites are blocked always or during certain hours. And that can be
Hmm.
good kind of reinforcement to make good choices with your time. If you want to get more extreme, you can lock your phone up or other devices for certain amounts of time and like safes or that kind of thing, or give them to someone who will take care of them for you while you need to focus. But I find just elimination of distractions, sometimes even just deleting the app on your home page or deleting it from your phone so you have to log in through a browser is enough friction to stop you from getting distracted, or eliminating notifications or pop-ups. So I think you can eliminate distractions by not engaging, eliminate by putting barriers or friction to entry, or eliminate by just like radically removing the devices if that's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. You certainly have to take some serious action if you think that's really a
Mhm.
distraction. I mean, I think
Yep.
the stats that I hear these days of amount of hours some people spend on certain apps, right, on a weekly basis is like almost as much as they sleep.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either whether that on YouTube or TikTok or any of those things. And it
Mhm.
has become an epidemic, right? Like I think our generation today is so much distraction, right? And it's easily there. And these platforms are designed to just keep you on their
Right.
platform
Right.
hooked, right? And that's the whole
Absolutely.
idea. And then people are teaching them how to keep them on the platform, whether by the way that they create content and everything else, right? It's designed to hook you in
Mhm.
to do that. So obviously, you are a time coach, right? You're an entrepreneur and also helping other people get better with their time and get more done, and done so without the stress, right? Like you emphasize that whole concept. So, what are some of the habits that you've developed personally that is really working wonders for you?
Yeah, yeah. So one, I would say going back to what I talked about before, just radical focus on what works and or doesn't work. So I
Hmm.
do business development activities, but I'm very careful about what I do
Hmm.
or don't do. And I really evaluate whether things get results. And I don't try to do everything. And I think that is number one why I have a very successful business without a lot of stress. Number two, I think I'm good at setting boundaries. And
Hmm.
so I have certain hours when I work or available to clients and when I'm not. I have a 10-month-old daughter and I'm married. So that is a big part of it. Like I want and need to be available to my family when I'm not working. So I think that's really important. And I set expectations accordingly. Like I answer email, but it's by the next business day. And I just make sure that people don't think I'm going to be instantly responsive of all time of the day or night. In terms of habits, I'm a huge advocate of weekly and daily planning. So I plan my week every Monday morning, plan my day every morning, and I'm just like radically focused on moving through what I think are the key and most important things to get done. And so I think those are some of the key things. Like they sound simple and there's a bunch of other different things I do, but I would say those are the key pillars that help me to have a successful business and have a very balanced life.
Yeah, you've mentioned some of those other apps. Are those ones that also you're using personally for yourself?
Right. Well, freedom, no, because I don't struggle with social media distractions that much. So
Hmm.
I don't. Some apps that I do use. So I love Calendly for scheduling. That is amazing. So if you're someone that schedules meetings with other people, use Calendly.com. It fuses with your schedule and people can just pick a time online. So I highly recommend that. I also something like text expanders. And so there's different tools that you can use. So in Mac, there's Type It For Me, PC Phrase Express. There's also a service that's more a subscription called Text Expander.
Hmm.
Love it. What that does is when I type short abbreviations, it pops up to be larger text. So there can be frequently typed emails that I have, or frequently typed phrases or questions I answer. And I just do a very short abbreviation. Like, for example, the welcome email for new clients is welcome TC, and then I type space and the whole email pops up. So I
Hmm.
highly recommend text expanders, that's something I use. And for my day to day, like my task list, as well as doing my weekly planning and all of that, I actually do that within Google Calendar. So I like
Hmm.
having, because I'm a very like meetings driven business with being a coach, I like having everything together so that I can plan my tasks in between my different coaching.
So in terms of like, that's another struggle that I have personally when it comes to getting things done. So I have the sales function. So I have sales follow-up tasks that are all loaded into HubSpot where my CRM is. And that has a lot of those tasks that I have to account for, right? And whether it be following up or sending a proposal reminders or even checking in with customers and whatnot. Then I also kind of oversee the marketing department. So I work with our team members and then they use a project management tool for some of those marketing related functions. And then that's another platform. There might be sometimes tasks that are assigned to me or that I would have to be accountable for. Then also being an entrepreneur, I'm also responsible for some of the operational and financial related things, right? So where you also have some admin related responsibilities that you have to account for. So when you have so many different functions that you fill, even though you have other key team members that are responsible to do some of those things, but you also still have some tasks. So are you then recommending you block, like I know you're a big proponent of time blocking, like really putting those into the calendar for a specific, whether that be admin or sales or whatever else, and then you just like, how would you, what would be your recommendation on how to account for those sort of tasks that are not just a face-to-face or like a meeting?
Sure. So I have a couple different thoughts on how to approach that.
Hmm.
So if you have some recurring tasks that you need to do every week for a particular function within the business, I
Hmm.
probably would block that as a recurring block in my calendar. So for example, maybe on the sales side, like every Friday, you need to review the sales reports and how people are doing.
Hmm.
Instead of having to rethink every week when you do that, I would just have a block, maybe 2 to 3 on Friday, recurring, like review sales reports. If you need to, if there's something urgent, you can move it around, but then
Hmm.
it's just so much easier than like having to remember, like, oh yeah, I have to do that and it has to be done at this time. For things that are more ad hoc, so not like recurring activities that you have to do, what I recommend is actually a checklist. So when I do my weekly planning, I have a checklist that I go through of here's where to check for tasks. These are my different projects and deadlines. And I go through that. And that's actually one of my text expanders. So I type WP space and the list pops up of what I do once a week. And then I
Hmm.
go through that and I know I've checked all the buckets for the week and know I'm on track. So if I was in your situation, what I would probably do with my weekly planning checklist is to say, like, check the sales items, check the marketing items, check the operations items, pick the top ones for the week. If they're larger items, like maybe something that will take an hour or more, I would block time into my week to make sure that I have that accounted for and it doesn't get booked over with a meeting and I can have that focus. If they're smaller little tasks and they're time sensitive, then I would put them as a task at the top of my calendar on that day to know, like, okay, when you have 5 minutes in between a meeting, like check this off
Hmm.
and do that. So that's probably what I would do as a protocol in terms of your weekly planning gives you an opportunity to look at the whole universe of ideas, narrow it down to what you think you can get done in the next 7 days, and then your daily planning is basically tweaking an iteration where if something comes up you have to address, then you adjust as necessary, but it's not efficient at all to look at
Hmm.
every single task or every single bucket every day. So if you can avoid that and just do a real good review weekly and then execute on a daily basis, you're going to be most efficient and effective.
I mean, I can certainly sit here and talk to you for hours about some of these best practices and ideas. I would say one last question that I would have is, there are so many people that wants your time and attention. So their emails are your to-do list and their asks are your to-do list, right? And then how do you budget, right? Because of the fact that you have several functions that you play as, especially as a business leader, how do you budget all these different unknowns that you couldn't even think about when the week started and that you can account for, especially when you talked about having that time balance and understanding that you don't have unlimited amount of time, right? Like those some of those concepts that you mentioned. Knowing that, how would you prepare and make sure that you don't just get pulled into working long hours every day or weekends?
Right. Well, I mean, number one, you don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to do everything because people want you to.
Hmm.
So I know, for example, on LinkedIn, and I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing this, it's like I get so many messages that are people trying to sell me things all the time or meet with me all the time. I ignore most of them. I don't respond. So you do not need to respond to everything. You can choose what you engage in. Even if you want to respond, you do not need to meet with people. So people will be like, oh, when do you have time to meet? With how about the next few days? And if I want to respond at all, I'll often respond and say, oh, could you send me over some information or website? And then if they do, then I can look at that. It takes me a couple seconds versus,
Hmm.
15 minutes of my time or more. So first of all, you do not need to respond to everything. You do not need to engage. If you do engage, you decide how you want to engage. You don't need to engage as a meeting. So I think that's like really important in terms of being radically clear. And then also if you are going to engage and something is important, you should be able to decide on the pacing if you're not creating emergencies. So if someone wants or needs something or wants to meet with you, you should be able to say, yeah, I'd love to meet with you. Let's set up something for next week. Or great, I got that. I'll be working on it. I'll get back to you soon. And then you plan it out when it works for you, how you're going to do it, or you delegate it to someone else. And so I think that's a real key to slow the flow. You decide when things happen. And even a tip there, like for example, with LinkedIn, I batch reply to those messages once a week. And so I
Hmm.
do that on Monday. And if you message me in between, you're not going to hear from me. And if it's
Hmm.
someone I want to hear from, I'll reply and I say, hey, you're hearing from me now because I batch reply on Monday for a reply by the next business day. Here's my business email. And
Hmm.
so we really need to question like how much do we need to respond or engage with things? We can set the rules about what that looks like.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest hurdle is, in describing some of those things, I see that I see the value in all of them. Sometimes I feel guilty that maybe people are their job is gonna get held behind, right? Especially if it's like an internal team member that needs something from you, and if you put aside that reply or don't pick up that team's call internally because they're asking for something from you, and then their task is now put aside, and then now it's gonna have like that compounding effect in some sense. So I feel guilty not picking up the actual Teams call internally, or a chat that came in, or sometimes even an email. So
Right.
I think it's definitely requires some mental building up a completely different framework in your mind.
Right. Well, and also avoiding emergencies. So if
Hmm.
something's not an emergency, you don't have to feel guilty. They can continue working on what they can already do without, maybe they'll just put a like to come where that piece is missing and then they can just keep working on everything else. Or they can set it aside and work on it once you can get back to them. If things aren't last minute, things aren't emergencies, then it's fine that you respond to them in a few hours or even the next day. And if something is an emergency, it's good to have protocols for that too. Like call me at this number, or text me here, or IM me here if this truly is an emergency. I'm not saying never stop. Like you can use your discretion
Hmm.
on this, but you can't always be a call center or you're not going to get value work done.
Yeah, I've heard someone say your poor planning does not make it an urgent matter for me, or something like that. I've heard
Mhm.
somebody say that.
Your
Uh,
planning isn't my emergency. Yeah.
exactly. That's a great way to kind of end our conversation. So, Elizabeth, where can people find you? Where can they learn more from you?
Yeah, so my website is reallifee.com. So that's REALLIFE and then another E as in Elizabeth. And you can find out more about me, my books, resources, coaching, all those good things.
Awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing some of your life lesson and wisdom with my audience.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This episode of Coffee with Closers is brought to you by One IMS, a leading digital marketing agency helping businesses win new customers. To request a free marketing ROI audit, please visit oneims.com. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. To make sure you never miss an episode, please subscribe.